By the time you get to astrology, you're already pretty aware of some of your quirks, and just finding them in the chart is very liberating, because you look at it and you go, oh, it's not that I'm a little aloof in love. It's, my Venus is in Aquarius, based on a true story. Hi, welcome back to Soul Awakenings with Madiha Sosan podcast. Today we have a special guest, Inbaal. Hi, I'm Inbaal. I'm a psychic tarot reader and witch. I deal with astrology and I'm very passionate about manifesting. Hi, Inbaal. Oh my God, it's finally great to see you in person, because I feel like we talk online a lot. Finally, it's great to see you. We talk all the time, and I was so proud to be your guest on the Zoom during the Zoom days in the previous season. But as super business-minded women as we are, the first time we meet in person is to do a business thing. Yeah. Last time we talked about, obviously, how do you psychic get predictions? And we were getting to know, how do you get predictions and your life and your TV background. And this time I was like, okay, well, you know about astrology, and I'm looking for somebody who knows about astrology. Inbaal. There's so much about astrology. And there's actually so much of astrology that touches a lot of the other divination processes. And there's a lot about astrological prediction that we can see in our day-to-day operations as individuals, but also what's playing out politically throughout history and throughout the present. So I personally adore astrology because it's a little bit everywhere. Which is we're gonna dive right into it. But first of all, it's an absolute honor having you on the podcast again. And start off with, tell us a bit about who you are, because there might be new listeners listening. So your intro. Thank you. And also congratulations on all the awards for your podcast for all the previous seasons. So my name is Inbaal. I have been a professional psychic tarot card reader and have worked with astrology and manifesting for 24 years, now a little over 24 years since I quit the day job and made my passion into my business. I've been able to read tarot since I was 20 years old. And because the tarot is such an axis of numerology, astrology, color therapy, there's a lot of shapes and interest there. That was my perfect gateway drug to the entire divination community. And while I was kind of journeying, I also picked up a lot of magic, manifesting, witchcraft, spell work, and honoring the old gods and the seasons. So my intro is kind of like I suppose, fantasy movie pitch, but in real life. Which is amazing. Let's talk about astrology. So what is it and how does it work? Right. So I've got to refer this back to a question I had from a client a couple of days ago. She noticed, I pressed on her story. It was 4 a.m. and she sent me a message going, "Since you're awake, I have a question for you." Now, I have firm boundaries. I didn't answer straight away, you'll be pleased to know. I left it for the next day. But the question was, I spoke to somebody and I referred to astrology as a science. And they said, that's ridiculous. And I said to her, that's a very good question. Astrology is not a science, but it used to be. So now astrology is classed as a pseudoscience. I like to think of it as an art, because I like to think of all the mystical arts as an art. But 200 years ago, astrology and astronomy were the same thing. They were the science and the art of observing the sky and seeing how the movement of the planets impacts us here on Earth. So astrology is still the art of seeing how it impacts us, and astronomy is a proper science, and that still observes the heavens. But another very interesting thing, I DM'd her the next day, is that all those years ago, when we look at the early days of medicine, you couldn't qualify as a physician without knowing astrology. So the old works on medicine that we see having come from Greece, for example, via the Greek philosophers, you had to be able to diagnose a person's humor. A humor was a personality type, and that went by the 4 elements that we use in astrology, the 4 classical elements. So earth, air, fire, and water. The humors were, I think one of them is called phlegmatic, which always makes me laugh, melancholic, and they're divided to wet and warm, wet and cold, dry and warm, dry and cold, and vice versa. So there's the 4 versions of it. And those are the elements exactly the way that they are represented in astrology. The medical science of the ancients would include things like body parts that relate to different star signs. And so the head is Aries. And if you're an Aries and you get headaches a lot, teeth, eyes, that's just very Aries. The feet are Pisces. And if you saw me try to walk on these shoes or anything that's not like comfortable geriatric shoes, you'd understand why feet and Pisces are linked, because Pisces have very sensitive feet. So I'm not saying that all of this is like fact beyond, beyond any doubt. But as the science of medicine was being put together, astrology was very much a firm part of it.
Wow, that's incredible. Where did we lose that link between? Where did we lose it? Where everything was combined together, and then all of a sudden it's like completely separate.
I think we lost that link when we lost paganism, because those planets are all named after the ancient gods. They're seen as earthly manifestations of the ancient gods. And we still have a lot of those words in existence. For example, the god Mars is what gives us the word martial in this life. Martial arts, for example. The god Mars was the god of war. Martial arts are the arts of war. So when conquests came and new religions were born and new religions had to get rid of the old gods as part of the colonizing process, take away everything that the ancient people would rely on to sort of encourage their spirituality and replace it with a new spirituality. We still have a lot of clues in our everyday life. The days of the week are still named after gods and planets. So in English, when we say the days of the week, Monday is the moon, and then Tuesday is the Norse god Tu, which is the god of war. So much easier in the names of the week in French, because lundi is still lune, the moon, and then mardi, Tuesday, is Mars, which is an equivalent of Tu. So we still have a lot of words that refer back. They're little Easter eggs, linguistic Easter eggs. For example, the word lunacy is moon madness. And I know it's not scientific, but I've definitely heard from friends that work in the mental health arena that during times of the full moon, there are more cases of crimes, people being committed, people being admitted. Now, because it's not classed as a science, then these things are just circumstantial evidence. But I like to say circumstantial evidence is a type of evidence. I like it. If my husband came to me and said, I didn't have sex with somebody, I just had oral sex with somebody. It's a type of evidence.
Oh my God, it makes perfect sense, because full moon, every time, I can't sleep for a week. And even a couple of days after the full moon.
Yes.
I'm okay with new moon. For some reason, full moon is really strong, where I can't sleep, and there's a lot of purges that needs to come out. It's like letting go, isn't it? Full moon is about letting go.
It's very much letting go. Now, what's interesting is that you're a Leo, right?
Yes.
And Leo is governed by the sun. I'm Pisces and I'm governed by the moon. So during the full moon, we can have full conversations at crazy hours when the rest of the world is asleep. You know, shift workers are just starting to wake up and we haven't gone to sleep yet, because the moon affects, that was incorrect. It's actually Cancer that's ruled by the moon, but Pisces is associated with the moon, as evidenced by the tarot card, the moon being the card of Pisces. Pisces very linked with the moon. The metal of Pisces is silver, metal of the moon. But during the full moon, I'll go running at 11 p.m. because might as well go running under the moon, you know, kind of commune with it as I go. You, as a Leo, are ruled by the sun. And the times of the full moon and indeed the new moon are times where the sun and the moon create special angles.
Right. So bang in the middle then.
Exactly. So the sun and the moon at the time of the full moon are, I want to say exactly together, which is why we have so much light on the moon. And at the time of the new moon, they're exactly opposite. So, for example, the full moon at the time of Pisces will be when the sun is in Pisces and the moon is in Virgo.
It's interesting because my moon is Virgo. And I'm a Leo, moon is where rising is Aquarius.
Right. And Aquarius is such a mystical rising to have. And Aquarius rising are just so themselves and so unapologetically that whichever route they take, they're taking it. They're taking it. You could have people with pitchforks following you going, absolutely, you're not going there. And you're
going to go there. I'm going to go there.
Yeah, this is where I'm going. You can come, bring the pitchforks. We might need them if we're climbing on something. But what's funny is that the Virgo moon is actually very neat and tidy and organized. And in order to do something like this, like what you've put together, you need to have vision and be efficient as well. And how many people do you think would have both? Not many. And that's what kind of
And then
creates...
you have the Leo as a leadership as well.
Exactly. Yeah, so you're floating to the top. Which way are you going? There.
I love it. So just a little bit more on the moon and the full moon and the new moon energy. How do we better channel the energy when it's full moon and new moon and everything in between? How do we channel it?
One of my favorite topics, during the new moon, that's a time of new beginnings. You could have completed that sentence, right? That's time of new beginnings. And so during the new moon, you might want to make yourself a manifestation list of all the new things that you want to start from scratch. When manifesting, I always say, shoot for the stars. It doesn't have to be realistic. It just has to be in your list, because so many unrealistic things are taking place all the time. Might as well be something from your list. So brand new things, wish for them, see them, visualize them. And what a great opportunity to make the impossible into reality than by visualizing it. During the full moon, this is where I personally just go for blessings and protection, because I have a lot of faith and I really believe that the full moon will envelop me with exactly what I need. But the full moon is also a great time for enhancing things. And so if you've got a business that's already going well, but you wanted to have that extra boost, that extra sort of magical glitter, full moon is great for that. The full moon is amazing for reaching the peak of things. So if you've got a race that all you want is to sort of get to the finishing line, the full moon is a time for it. But those are kind of the epic looking ones. I think the most important magic is during the waxing moon as it grows and the waning moon as it recedes.
Why is that? Because I never really understood that.
Because as the moon waxes, it increases everything. The light increases, the pull increases. And so if you want to increase a business, if you want to increase the love between you and a partner, if you want to increase vitality and health, if you want to increase your fitness, then you just use the time of the waxing moon, because that's the energy of growth and of expansion. So that is actually my personal favorite. And then for decreasing during the waning moon, this is when you go for I hate to say it because it's so anti-feminist, but I've done many weight loss spells during the waning moon, because that's when you want to get rid of stuff. You do it for decreasing drama at work. You do it for decreasing interference from others. The best magic is magic that you do on yourself. And so the waning moon is a great time for decreasing procrastination or self-criticism or listening to criticism from others. And so there is no day of the month that's not appropriate for some kind of magic. And now let me go with a hack. Let me go with my favorite magical hack. Let's say you only have one day in the whole month that you can sit there with your candles and your oils and magic stuff up. Let's say that day is exactly the opposite to what you want to do. I'll come up with an example, and I'm like the worst at coming up with examples. But let's say the time that you can do it is during the waxing moon, and so growth. And what you want to do is absolutely reduce the nosiness of your neighbors. You just change the words. You change the words. So instead of saying reduce the nosiness, you go with increase. What do you want to increase? Privacy. You want to increase autonomy, so that people don't interfere. And with a little bit of wordplay, you can make any time work for you. And if we had like 3 hours for the rest of this, I would also go into how each day of the week has its own energy and which moon phase has its own energy, because we go through all 12 moon phases to have sort of different outcomes for different magics. And so back when I was young and childless and free to do my own things all the time, I could say I want to do a magic for world peace, very popular one. Not as popular as it should be though, but still very popular one. I would say, well, this is perfect to do on a Saturday. I would like for it to be on a Saturday of a full moon, because I want world peace and that is it. And it would be amazing, obviously, if it was in the sign of Libra. So I could wait until we had a full moon in Libra, wait for April or the end of March, have everything ready and go for it. That is not a life I lead anymore. First of all, if I want something done, I want it done this week. And secondly, that full moon in Libra, I might be on driving to gymnastics duty. It's not so simple. So I will use what I have. And if all I have for world peace is the time of the waning moon, and it's a Tuesday, which is a day of kind of war and conflict. So you think exactly the wrong one. And let's say it's during the waning moon in Leo. Yeah, again, Leo has to win. I would still find the right words for it. I would use war and conflict in an effort to kind of plug into the energy of war and conflict in order to switch it off. I would use the waning moon to create that waning, that switching off, that reducing of war. And I would visualize a great humanitarian or a great leader, like peace leader from history, or if we had it, could be peace leader from the present, but we're a little short. And I would create the right words and the right
environment.
Exactly. To make all of that happen with the time and the energy that I have to work with.
Wow. That's like, I knew about new moon and full moon, but it's like the whole in between matters as well. And is that why I can't sleep a week before the full moon?
Yes. So the full moon is not like a moment. If you look at your ephemeris, the date book for astrology, then the full moon would be like, 11:08 p.m. No. A good sort of 4 or 5 days before, you kind of gearing up to the full moon. If anyone likes looking at the waves, it's just like long before the wave, you've got the water kind of being swept away from the sand and it's kind of building up. Then you have the full moon and then it kind of calms down from the full moon, but it's still very intense. I would say a good 4 or 5 days before. The night before the full moon, the night of the full moon, and the night after the full moon, forget about it. Absolutely no chance. And then 2 to 3 days afterwards, things are still kind of vibrating.
Wow, that's such powerful. Like, we haven't even got into the planets yet. We're only talking about the moon. So let's talk about the planets. Like, how do planets' positions kind of help you make kind of predictions?
Yes. Yeah. So the planets' positions, as you're thinking about them in 3D, don't make a lot of sense. You've got to think of them flat. An astrological chart is flat, and so in your mind, visualize all the planets coming from all the, above you, below you, and they're all hitting like a flat ground. And on that ground, make a circle and divide it into 12. Because what we're looking at is not the actual position of the planet, how far it is, but the relative position of the planet compared with today's chart or compared with your birth chart. And so, for example, the planet Mercury, much maligned and very famous because of the good old Mercury retrograde. The planet Mercury deals with communication primarily. And then the entire rainbow of things that deal with communication. So commerce, journeys, emails, eBay, online ordering, writing, like actual pen and paper. The reason it's so famous because of Mercury retrograde is that when Mercury appears to be going backwards in the sky, obviously planets don't go backwards, they're on orbit, but flatly, if it appears to be going back to the previous sign, then that kind of collapses those systems so that, eBay won't work, so that you'll start writing and lose your pen. Sort of really basic things like that. So let's say that Mercury is in Aquarius. That means that anything around the communication arena will operate in a more Aquarian way. So that means that conversations will be more mystical or more humanitarian or more aloof, all of which are Aquarian qualities. It means that, say, Zoom interviews, right? Job interviews will be a lot less personal because Aquarius is not really warm and fuzzy, but also not very businesslike. An Aquarius Mercury job interview will be very aspirational. This is what I could do for you. Whereas the same job interview when Mercury is, say, in Aries, Aries is bold, Aries is going, Aries is going through the wall to get to where they want. So Mercury in Aries job interview will be very much like, you're hiring me, and once I'm there, I'm firing you, and when I keep you, and that will be the vibe, even if the person is not an Aries. So the planets influence different spheres of being throughout the day. And I think for a lot of people, that's kind of what they don't like about astrology, the feeling as if they don't get to be in control of everything. But the truth is, you do get to be in control of absolutely everything. You have a working brain, and you have agency, and you have your own personal drive. When you know what astrology's got laid out for you, when you know that Mercury will be in Aquarius for your job interview, then you can already plan. You've hacked the system. You know that the people interviewing you are going to be looking for an aspirational candidate. You pitch yourself right there. I find astrology to be so useful just for preparation.
It's like, okay, so that would be perfect case scenario for it to be in Aquarius or whatever sign, but if it's in Cancer or if it's in Pisces, it's completely the opposite. If you're going for that job interview, you'll be like emotional wreck.
Yeah. So you could go with emotional wreck, or you can make a heart connection with your interviewer.
That's great.
It can all be used for your advantage. Sorry, I sound like such a megalomaniac. I've got the whole world figured out and it's all working for me. But I think in knowing what you're approaching, let's take that example. Let's say, Cancerian Mercury job interview. Cancer love a sense of community. They love a family. So you go in, maybe if one of the interviewers has an interesting surname, you're like, oh, what part of the world is that from? You've made a heart connection. You've made them think about your family. You're in.
Yeah,
you're hired,
vulnerability as well, like connecting. Great, I love that. You just need to switch the thinking from, oh my God, it's Mercury retrograde and we're going to have a month full of like disasters, to actually there's like learning from it, reflection, finish off all projects. How amazing is that? So that clearing all that stuff.
Exactly. I love Mercury retrograde. First of all, I like chaos. I have my moon is in Sagittarius, so I like chaos. I like noise. That's how I ended up with this many children. But also, I love as we go into the Mercury retrograde, because I think I have been wondering what my ex is up to. I'll bet you I'm going to hear some news as the Mercury retrograde is coming. I like the chaos of, the school closing in the middle of the day for no reason. I feel like I'm in a computer game. Let's jump into that challenge and see how fast it is to pick up 4 different kids from 2 different schools when it's snowing.
I love it. So let's talk about zodiac sign. You already mentioned about Leo and Cancer and Pisces, Virgo. Can you briefly kind of explain what those star signs are?
Yes. So the star signs, or the animals that represent them, are just sort of very old representations of the different personality types. And what's funny is that throughout the different systems in the world, they are a bit equivalent, because the personalities are the same personalities. And so when you look even at sort of Chinese astrology, even though the animals are different, the characteristics are the same. So, for example, Scorpio and dragon/snake are kind of the same personality types. So if we divide all the personality types, first of all, to the 4 classical elements, we have our water signs, Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, and they're more emotional. They work from the heart. They go with their gut feeling. They value people and connections. We've got the fire signs, Leo, Aries, and Sagittarius, and they are action, and they are explosive, and they are dynamic. You have the earth signs, Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo, and they are organized, focused, business-minded. They care where their next meal is coming from and whether they can pay the rent. And you've got your air signs, Aquarius, Libra, and I knew one was going to fall right out of my brain. Right out of my brain, Aquarius, Libra, and and who am I
Sag.
missing in the start? No, Gemini.
Gemini.
Oh, apologies to Gemini. How could anyone forget a Gemini? And they're the ideas people. They're thinkers. They're interested in stuff. They're idealistic. And within each of them, you break it down to a fixed sign, a mutable sign, and a cardinal sign. So the cardinal signs, like Aries, are the get up and go kind of people. The fixed signs, like Taurus, just want to stay in one place. And the mutable signs, like Gemini, will go back and forth between things. And so when you get on with somebody, it might be because that person is exactly your star sign, or it might be because you're the same element and then you'll have the same kind of dynamism or the same kind of heart connection, or it could be because you're both fixed or both cardinal, and that creates sort of interesting compatibilities because each of the signs can only be one element and one modality, like cardinal, fixed, mutable, and there's only one of each combination.
So like Leo would not work.
Leo, I would say, is very dangerous. It's very risky. It's very risky. I say that to people in relationships, but it also applies to business. Leo is a leader. What is the maximum number of leaders that you would recommend for a love story or for a business? I would say a maximum of one.
Yeah.
If you said two, you're braver than me. So some things work better than others. For example, Leo friendship can be incredible because you'll hype each other up and you'll support each other.
Loyal,
Really loyal and really dynamic. And as a Pisces, I cannot recommend enough having a dynamic friend around you that lifts you up, because some of the signs can just kind of sink into themselves. For example, Taurus, which is earth, which is kind of the quietest of elements, and is fixed, which is kind of the quietest of modalities. A Taurus, and Taurians are amazing. They're gifted writers, they're artists, they're thinkers, they are cooks, they're foodies, they know all the best hotels. Get a Taurus on your team and you cannot go wrong, but they struggle to get off the seat. And so you have this amazing untapped potential, but without a dreamer by their side, you could have that go to waste. So I don't think there are any combinations that are bad or good. Of course, there are some combinations that are disastrous or wonderful, but not bad or good. But I think every combination in it can create a dynamic that is really unique and really works, or otherwise doesn't work, for the people within that dynamic. And I think, for people watching, for people listening, have a think, do you always perhaps date Scorpios, and then you think to yourself, why does it always end the same way? Because you might be drawn to the same type of personality, but that could be the exact personality that's sort of really wrong for you.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's where the trauma bonding comes in as well. So it's oh my.
Oh, what a response. That's so true and so on the nose.
Yeah, let's take me for example. So Leo, well, I'm not gonna go too much into it. I was in a relationship with a Leo itself, and it was quite explosive, right? But for Leos and the fire signs, is the water signs better, or is it?
I think the water signs are a little bit risky. I'd put you with an Aquarius, me. Why?
Nice.
Why? Because Leo leadership, you're right in sort of looking at the water signs first, because you think, well, water signs love being followers, and a leader and a follower is a nice combination, which is not me being down on water signs. Water signs just, we don't want to make the big decisions. You say where we're going to go for dinner. You decide. So it would be lovely. But the fire signs have a bit of a cruelty on them, which water signs cannot take. That excessive honesty,
The right message, yeah.
It's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. Water signs, we want to live in fantasy land. We're happy in fantasy land. There's really no need for like big truths at 7 a.m. However, air signs are kind of happy for you to take the lead. They'll also call you out when you're wrong, which is useful because the water signs won't do that. But the real specialty of the air signs is that you could say the most direct thing to them. You could even be purposefully cruel and they won't care. The air signs are like, well, the problem's with you, not with me. The air signs know how to wash off any of the world's cruelty because they know that they woke up in the morning and chose to be kind. And that's the life that they're leading. I say kind, sometimes cheeky in case of Gemini, but still they know that the problem is not with them. So somebody like an Aquarius would be such a nice combination. I'm trying to think, is it the exact polar opposite? Is it polarity?
With the Aquarius?
Yeah.
Well, what if I have the star sign, the rising Aquarius?
Right. That actually creates kind of a compatibility. You can call that compatibility trauma bond and you wouldn't be entirely wrong, but when you recognize parts in yourself in a partner, that creates that familiarity, and that familiarity is similar to trauma bond, but much less toxic, which is really what we're going for.
Yeah, so it's like you have to really pick your partner as for their star, moon, and rising.
I think you can either sit down and do lots and lots of calculations, or you can follow your heart. Your heart knows everything. And then once you've been together a little while, make them, do the charts, see how they work out. They're going to say exactly what you already know. For me, the most beautiful thing in the supernatural is that it's natural. It's just exactly what you knew. And I'm primarily a tarot reader. That's my passion. And it's so rare, almost like at 0%, when I'll give somebody a prediction and a prediction may be so-so and they'll be surprised by it, or we'll cover the past and they'll be surprised by it, because you already know who you are. You already know what you draw to. You already know the gumption that you bring with you. So I, as the reader, might sort of sit there all anxious going, how can I tell her that she's not going to sell the house for 5 years? And then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to say it. And she's like, yeah, I never do anything about it. You're so right. And she knows. So I think letting your heart make the choice is probably the wisest, because I have a lot of faith. I like to say I have a lot of faith for an atheist. I have a lot of faith that the right things come to you exactly when you need to. And when it's not the right thing, then it's there to teach you a very important lesson without which you wouldn't be able to progress as a person.
That's like beautifully said, like, because heart and intuition led is like so important, isn't it?
I really think it is.
And then sometimes we get so caught up in like, oh, this planet is this, that planet is that, this is happening, it's just too... You're already putting blockages in something that it may be meant to be.
Exactly. So I like a sentence that I learned very, very early on in my in my journey, which is, the stars impel, they do not compel. Nothing can break your free will and your desire and your drive. What looking into astrology can give you is a little bit of extra information. So let's say, for example, you've met somebody new and you went ahead and did their chart and found a red flag there. If that red flag is in the chart, but you're not noticing it in the person, first of all, maybe they've already worked through it. Secondly, you know it's there. You keep that information, because people change, and people change throughout their circumstances in life. And a person who is 18 and fancy free with the exact same chart might be a very, very grumpy retired person but it was all in the chart in the first place. So if you see something that you think, oh, that could be problematic for me in the future, keep that information in mind and maybe even try to like negate it ahead of time. Also, and I cannot stress this enough, look for red flags in your own chart.
Yeah, obviously, you know, like red flag in you, but what about me?
Yeah.
It's that red, that's so true. Self-awareness.
Self-awareness, self-improvement, self-love, self-commitment are really at the heart of walking the path that's right for you. If you're walking somebody else's path, if you're the kind of person that still thinks, oh, you know, my mom would be so happy if I married someone with money, and that's what you go for, then you're really condemning yourself to a lifetime of, I don't want to say misery, but certainly confusion.
Yeah, very out of alignment with what you are.
Exactly, alignment.
Yeah, oh my God, this is amazing. Hey there, healers, wellness warriors, and holistic fans. Exciting news, we've just teamed up with Listening to Smile, a company all about healing through music. Imagine listening to music that doesn't just sound good, but actually makes you feel better. Now, here's the deal. Just listening to that music for 20 minutes a day could make a huge difference to your mind, body, and soul. And guess what? You get 20% off their awesome albums with the code Soul Awakenings. But wait, there's more. Want to improve your practice, earn more, and keep your work safe? Then this program is for you. It's all about opening up new possibilities and protecting what you create. So, are you ready to get started? Head over to their website, www.listeningtosmile.com, and let's begin your journey to feeling great. Don't forget to use the code Soul Awakenings to save 20% at checkout. All of these links and the code will be added to the description below. Let's awaken those souls together. So, I listened to one of your, I think you were on a podcast or a show. You were talking about what can we expect in 2024.
Yes.
Right. Can you tell me, because of the feel, it feels like the world is like in a really weird space right now.
It's in a weird space because we're in between two Pluto periods, right? So that takes a lot of explaining, but we're just going to sort of boil it down to what's important for you to know, sort of whether you should build a bomb shelter in the corner of your house or not. The short answer is no.
Right. Okay.
Peace is coming.
Right.
What we're going to go through until that peace comes, we'll leave that up to the gods, but Pluto, which is the furthest planet from Earth still in the solar system, which has also got declassified and is no longer a planet, but we still use it in astrology. Pluto takes about 20 years to go through each sign. And for the past 20 years, Pluto has been in Capricorn. Capricorn was, is a time of focus on money, on status, and in fact, the past at least 15 years, we've had the market crash and we've had the pandemic that had a lot of impact on everybody's finances. We've had war after war after war after war. And so different empires are becoming poorer and poorer. And for the past year and a half or so, Aquarius has been starting to replace Capricorn in that space. So as Pluto moves from Capricorn to Aquarius, it's not going straight. This is the famous retrograde that we talk about. Sometimes planets appear to be going backwards in the sky. Obviously, they don't go backwards, but from us just looking at them flat on the ground, Pluto has been going from Capricorn to Aquarius, back to Capricorn, back into Aquarius, and that is still going on. Now, we've switched more into Aquarius now. Aquarius is a sign of humanitarianism, peace, sensibility. But all of those times are times of rebellion because, unfortunately, the world we live in, war is big business. So in order to bring peace, there has to be some kind of a revolution. And the previous time that Pluto was in Aquarius, that's when we had the French Revolution. That's right about when we had America becoming independent. So that's the kind of thing that we're going to see. We're going to see the world getting redrawn, countries appearing, countries disappearing, and so on. There is going to be more autonomy, more independence, but we're not quite there yet. So in between September 2024 and November 2024, we've got that final visit of Pluto into Capricorn, into business-minded Capricorn, for the last time in 240 years. One last visit. During September, October, November, we are likely to see those world leaders that don't want to lead but just want to line their pockets. We're likely to see them sort of still making bank. But when Aquarius comes to clean house, maybe we'll see them in prison. I don't know. It would be nice. I can see you smiling behind the eyes.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's quite interesting because like a lot of truth's been coming out, and that's when it's in Aquarius going back to Capricorn, and it's like since during pandemic, it's like back and forth. A lot of truth's been coming out.
A lot of truths are coming out, but also the truths and what do you call them? Indictments, truths and court papers. But it's also, Aquarius is very idealistic. And so there's also a lot of misinformation and disinformation that we're going to see, because where Capricorn does have its teeth sunk into reality, in the space of Pluto, it's sunk into reality, sometimes meaning well, but not always. Aquarius always means well, but can sometimes be very confused because it's an air sign. It lives in its head. So nothing is ever perfect, but those shifts that we've seen, especially over the past year and a half, are going to draw to a close towards the end of 2024. So we've still got different types of rebellion coming in, but then we're moving into a complete transformation. I've got a better word than transformation. Metamorphosis. We've got a real metamorphosis of the world we're living in towards the end of 2024.
Oh, that's so interesting. So we're not expecting a world war in this.
I think we might be like on the verge of it.
Right.
But as we know, from history, world wars can be like 5 years, 3.5 years. I don't think we're going to go into a world war, but I do think we're going to go into a new world order out of being on the edge of a world war, looking down into the abyss.
Oof.
Oh, I know. I know. But see, now you have the information.
Yeah, well, the thing is everything happens when it's meant to happen. Everything needs to come to light. So the darkness is in order to shine that light on the darkness, there has to be a certain processes that need to be done, already. And, when we live in this planet, we get so much in our human emotions and bodies like this. But if you kind of look back,
exactly,
it's it needs to happen in order for that to happen.
The bigger picture is beautiful. The bigger picture is beautiful because just like people have their birth chart and the path that they're going to take, so do nations, so do countries, so do civil processes. When a law is ratified, it has a chart, it has a date that it was born, and then, that kind of impacts how that law will materialize. It's not like it's not like my zone of genius, but I love listening to people for whom it really is the zone of genius, the astrology of politics, because as the planets go through the different signs, it's kind of a cut and paste. Cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. In the case of Pluto, it's every 240 years. It's hard to remember. But in the case of, say, something like Uranus, it's a little bit easier because that takes, I don't know exactly, 12 years to get through a full cycle, maybe longer.
Oh, this is amazing. You talked about a birth chart. This is timely. I was going to go on to the birth charts. Tell me, what are they? And you said, like, it's like the time and the day you're born and a specific location you're born, and you can tell what you can do out in the world.
Absolutely. Right? So you'll know your gifts and talents, and also the things that will get in your way. So the birth chart itself is actually very, very simple. At the moment that that the baby is born or the baby is delivered, you take kind of a snapshot of where all the planets are, not where they are in the sky. You bring them down to Earth. They're flat in your imagination. They're on a flat surface. You make a circle, divide it into 12, and then you can see where each of the planets were at the time of the person's birth. And that has an impact on their successes, failures, destiny, the kind of people they would fall in love with, the kind of careers that will be great for them. And when we look at a birth chart, we look primarily at our sun sign, moon sign, and rising sign, which is kind of our, our trinity at the top. But there's also all the planets and where they are. So the faraway planets are generational planets. Everyone that goes to class with that person will all have their Uranus almost 100% in the same sign. They'll all have their Neptune in the same sign. They'll all have their Pluto in the same sign. So that entire generation will have some things in common, just like we see with Gen X, Gen Z, millennials. And then the planets that are closest to us are Mercury and Mars and Venus, and they are our immediate planets of how we respond to things, how we react to others. So Mercury for communication, Venus for love and family and the home, and Mars for like our temperament. And then right in the middle, we've got my two favorites. You've got Jupiter, that shows how you deal with growth, optimism, expansion, money, which is not just individual, but not just generational. And then you've got Saturn. Saturn is a very grown-up planet. This is how you deal with like deadlines and with chores and with balancing your accounts. So again, sort of the generation might have kind of a specific attitude towards it, but it's kind of more individualistic. And all of those items and elements create a personality. We haven't even gone into the Chiron and stuff, because that's, there's asteroids and all sorts.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So like Jupiter, what was the Jupiter?
Right. Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius and the traditional ruling planet of Pisces. And Jupiter is a planet that's in charge of growth, expansion, putting on an extra bedroom on the house, deciding to open another branch of the business. Jupiter for me is such a jolly, excitable, try anything once kind of planet.
Well, this is the biggest planet. Is it the biggest, or is Saturn the biggest planet?
The astronomy is really not my thing.
Okay, yeah. Well, not mine.
I'll check with my kids later.
So, like, you talked about Venus, and we were briefly talking about the retrogrades, Mercury retrograde. So, the main ones are Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, and what are the Mars retrograde? What are these? What are the differences? What do we expect in?
Right. So the Mercury retrograde arrives 3 to 4 times a year, each time for 3 to 4 weeks. So we'll be very familiar with its effects, and because it's a communication planet, it'll impact and mess up everything to do with communication. So I could send you a message with a big compliment, miss out one word, turns into a big insult. Or I could make a big order and it'll get delivered not to my neighbor, but to a person with a similar address in the next village. So anything around communication is likely to go wrong. Venus is the planet of love. And so when Venus decides to go retrograde, that can create issues within the love life, within the home, because Venus is also the home. So, that handle that you're thinking, I'll glue it back later, I'll glue it back later. It'll be during the Venus retrograde that it stays in your hand and, is totally unglueable. It can be suspicions between partners. It can take the love and make it too much, make it cloying for the other person. And then Mars is kind of your dynamism. It's your sexuality, it's your passion, and also your temperament. And during Mars retrograde, things can really sort of take a turn for the worse because Mars is already a little bit annoyed. Mars wakes up on a morning looking for somebody to shout at, just as like a bit of morning exercise. So if you put that on the retrograde, Mars is likely to find extra things to be annoyed about. And also because it is a planet of kind of passion and desire, you might find yourself, against your better judgment, attracted to the very, very wrongest people for you.
Oh my God. I've actually so I had Vedic astrology reading done. Now that's completely different to what the general is. And she basically said that you were in your sun energy. That's when I was like winning all these awards and on stages and being on radios. Everything was coming at me. And then she goes like during lockdown, I can't remember which year, you went into your moon energy, which is very internal, and no matter how hard you try, you want to be on stage or something, not happening. And it's not been happening. Like being on stage is like internal. How do I balance it out? And that I'm going to ride that energy for like 7 years or something. And then I'm going to get into my Mars energy. Everything's going to be back in alignment. It's like bish, bosh, boosh.
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
so crazy, isn't it? How you got to, this certain,
stages. There's ages and stages for everything. And what's beautiful in Vedic astrology is that it actually comes with advice for everything. This is what you should do. This is what you should do. Whereas Western astrology is more like, this is what is happening.
Yeah.
Free will, go for it.
Do what you want to do.
Yeah, that's it. Your Vedic astrology comes in and says, right, this is now your time to do this. Oh, what are you dawdling for? Put your shoes on. This is what you're doing now.
Yeah.
I love that. It's direct.
Yeah. How can understanding our birth chart and astrology help with our personal development and growth aspect or self-awareness?
I think by the time you get to astrology, you're already pretty aware of some of your quirks. And just finding them in the chart is very liberating because you look at it and you go, oh, it's not that I'm a little aloof in love. It's, my Venus is in Aquarius, based on a true story. So when you look at your chart, you will find things to identify with. Those things then do not give you an excuse to keep being aloof. You transmute them. So just sort of using my my Venus in Aquarius, I look at it and I'll think, right, I clearly need space in a relationship. How do I achieve that space without needing to resort to being aloof? So, for example, if you see something, really positive and really exciting in your birth chart, for example, say Mercury in Virgo, because Mercury is ruled by Virgo, that's a really, really good space. You can think, maybe this is the career that I need to follow. Maybe my career has to be in communications. Maybe my career has to be in something really intricate, where most people would break it the moment they go in the lab. But I could be sort of the big star of the show. So your chart helps you understand yourself. Now, first and foremost, growth is almost automatic from the moment that you have self-awareness and understanding of your own processes. That's already sort of the biggest leap. But then as you look at the different aspects of your life, your relationships, your home, your attitude to money, your attitude to timekeeping, you can see how to make each of those aspects more aligned with who you are. And so even the concept of success, or the concept of being lucky, will be very, very different to a Leo than to a Capricorn, than to a Cancerian. And all of them are absolutely valid. Success is, is a very flexible term. If you want to improve your approach to money, we're going to Jupiter, which is which is the planet of expansion, growth. And if your Jupiter is in a very frugal sign that doesn't like to spend much, or that doesn't really value money, that could be something that holds you back from achieving wealth. And so you look for other aspects within your chart to see how to kind of override it. So just like a wild example, if your Jupiter is in, I don't want to keep going back to Cancer. Let's say your Jupiter is in Scorpio. Scorpio is not really that bothered about how much they earn. In fact, Scorpio feels the same with, 30 grand in saving, 30 grand debt. It's the same thing. It's the same number. So let's say your Jupiter is in Scorpio, and so your approach to money is very casual, but your sun sign is actually Capricorn. It's very important for you to sort of feel grounded and to feel like you're protected. You look around at your chart and figure out how to work with that Scorpio energy, what you have in your chart that can, it's a bit like sort of throwing a stake into the lion's cage. Let Jupiter sort of play with something else while I focus on maybe my Mars being also in Capricorn, and then that drive to achieve and to succeed is there. Or use the help of a friend. You know that you've got an issue with money, even though you want to be wealthy, but you always sort of say to people, don't worry about paying, that's all right, I don't care. Get somebody to do that kind of work for you. Get a friend to ring up, or, even investing in a manager means that even if you give the manager half your wages, that's still a lot more than the zero you were getting before. So just knowing what is there can spark up the creative process between you and yourself to figure out how to take the next step in life.
Yeah, it's like, and using it as a tool, and not like, oh my God, now I'm in this stage. And
yes.
Your mindset is everything around it, right?
Yeah, because I'm a huge one for free will. Mm-hmm. I think there's nothing more important than the free will. If I want to make my mistakes, it is my prerogative to make my mistakes. I love making mistakes, in fact.
I think everybody should.
That's it. What's a faster way of learning a lesson than making the mistake yourself so that it is on your head? So just in having that awareness, that's enough. If you have a plan, if you're the kind of person that has a plan, then work with it step by step, fix it planet by planet if you want to. If you're more chaotic, then just be aware, stay switched on, so that if somebody says to you, oh, I'm so happy with the wall you painted for me, can I give you some money? Don't say no, because you're already aware that that's something that you'd respond that kind of way.
Love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. Now, normally I ask people the rapid fire questions, but I've already asked you in the previous episode. You guys go back and listen to that. We're going to do something different. You're going to do like about quick 5-minute tarot reading because you are a tarot reader.
Yes,
so you're going to do a reading for me. I'll be that guinea pig.
Right, and everything out in the open.
Yeah, everything. Oh, yeah. Well,
let's do it.
Everything. Let's do it.
Right, so I brought 2 decks. One I read from, one I teach with, but for really complicated reasons that would take an entire podcast to explain. I'm going to get you to have a nice shuffle.
All right, nice.
Why not? Why not? Why not?
This is how we do it. Right. How long do you want the shuffle for?
There's no right or wrong way. You shuffle your own way until you feel happy with it.
Okay. Do I need to close my eyes or anything?
Whatever is right for you.
Ooh, so a lot of stuff needs to come out then. There you go.
Beautiful. Now, I like to divide the deck into 3 and put it back together, just because the person I learned from used to do it this way, so I kept the tradition going. Right, you can see how your central cards are kind of cloudy. The tarot doesn't hold back, and it's saying to you, you know, babe, at the moment, not only are you stressed, but you're also blaming yourself for the stress, and you've got the kind of double worry of thinking, I shouldn't be worried. I shouldn't be worried. I should feel so lucky for what I have. And I started with the cloudy ones, with the, you know, kind of melancholic ones first, because what really stands out to me is how temporary they are. And so the way that you're feeling at the moment, where the thoughts are trying to enter your sphere, like, did you miss us? Did you miss us? You missed us, didn't you? Oh, there's something so warm and cozy in sitting wrapped up in the sadness, but it's temporary. They're on a spiral, so that when you were sad, a lot of the time the spiral was tight around you, but now that sadness just visits unwelcomely every once in a while, then it only hits every 6 months, it'll be every 9 months, so the spiral only hits the sad moment here and there. And it's doing it with you now, but I'm not even sure why it's doing it with you, because you're doing everything right.
Yeah.
Right?
God, that is so right.
You're doing everything right. You're eating, you're meditating, you're having your water, you're doing your gratitude, you're visualizing, you're glowing. I'm struggling to see what brought it on. I don't know if it's just habit or if it's something about the time of the year that relates to an old experience, because it says that you're just on your little horse, marching past Sadness Meadow, and you're not staying. You're not even stopping for a drink. You're just marching past it. You're looking around. You're trying it on for size, but it's just not you. It's really normal. And I also see that you're not freaking out about it, because you know you've come out of it before and you're going to come out of it again. But as you come out of it, it's going to be really weird, because it came so inexplicably, and you're going to pop out of it like, you know, like a balloon being popped, and you're going to look back and you're going to be like, what was that all about? Why all the weird thoughts? And I'll tell you, the only thing I can link it with is that it's kind of part of your journey. And it's something that you need to visit every once in a while. It's a little bit like people that might have a toxic family, which I know is not sort of the story for you. So that's, I'm not sort of saying an example as reality, but an example like as an example. People that have a toxic family and do their utmost to to cut the relationship. Every once in a while, a wedding or a funeral will come up where they have to see everybody. They prep themselves as much as they can. They make their excuses. They leave early. This is what's going on with you right now. So you're meeting those familiar spirits, and you're getting out of it as well. What's going to get you out of it? First of all, time. Secondly, it says that it's not success, but it's the hard work that you put into success that gets you out of it. So it's the hard work that's the ladder out, not, money and status that are the ladder out. And quite honestly, when you're happily in love again, everything's going to look so different. So
there's love coming for me.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
No, I did. Before you celebrate, there's love coming for you, and it could well be a Leo. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. No.
I'm so sorry, Madiha. I don't know how to say that to you, because I'm seeing a Leo. I'm seeing a healed Leo. I'm seeing a Leo that knows how to celebrate everything about being Leo. But I'm seeing a Leo. I'm so sorry. Just as we kind of wind down, it says that balance is really important for you. And so the biggest moments of joy have to be balanced out with some nights crying under the duvet. That's part of the nature that that you bring out into the world. It also shows that something has awakened in you, which is a lot more caring now. So if you used to be very, very guarded about your heart, now there are some channels in and out. They're small, but they're there. And finally, it says that you are so not into arguments at the moment and for the rest of your life at all, that say if somebody does try to come into your life, they raise their voice once and you delete them on everywhere. So I'm not so worried about sending you on a relationship with literally anybody, because I feel like the boundaries that you need are in place, and the boundaries that you don't need, that were defending you from phantoms, are disintegrating.
Wow. Oh my God, that's sadness. Like this, I'm out in the open. I'm going through that like dark night. That's all I said to somebody when I was interviewing them. I'm going through that dark night of the soul period again. It's that sadness. Yeah. And you picked it up on a tarot. You don't even know.
No, but you can see it's literally there. And for me, with tarot, I feel like I'm cheating the system, because it's just there. It's as if somebody handed me a book, and in the book it says, this is the book of Madiha at the moment. She is going through the sadness. I feel like I'm sort of reading it in the most obvious and the clearest way, because I can show you where it is, and you can see from the colors.
It's beautiful.
Right? But this is exactly sort of sad, disappointed, but look at a beautiful thing in the Eight of Cups. The Eight of Cups in the Thoth deck, which is this deck, has a lot of darkness. We've got the dark waters, we've got the dark skies above them. Can you see what's in between the sky and the water?
Silver liner.
That's it. The sunrise is there.
Amazing.
The sunrise is already part of that dark night of the soul, because it is temporary.
Beautiful. I mean, this is, as always, you're amazing.
Thank you.
It's just incredible. Thank you, Inbaal.
Thank you.
I don't know what to say, because this interview has just blown my mind. It's like so much stuff I've learned about the planets and the moon, and more about the moon. There's so much I've learned, and I'm sure it's going to help many of our listeners as well to. It's more educational for them.
Contextualize, exactly. You can contextualize.
To understand what's going on in their life and to do with the planets, which
because
is incredible.
Some of the worst things are just there in your chart. Things like addiction, where the person feels like they've done something wrong and like they've invited bad luck into their lives. Addiction is right there in your chart.
Yeah.
Do your best to sidestep it using other parts of your chart. Things like being tolerant of abuse, heaven forbid, where the guilt comes into it. How did I allow for that to happen in front of the children? It would be there in your chart, and that knowledge is absolutely priceless, because being able to let go of the guilt is the first step towards, giving yourself permission to live the exact life that you want to live.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of our award-winning podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. You can follow us on Instagram, Madiha Sosan 1, and YouTube, Madiha Sosan, for more content. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your family and friends, and let us know your thoughts on social media. A special thanks to our sponsors, the Resonance Center, for making it possible to use this beautiful space, and Razia's Bonton Salon for my amazing shiny hair and makeup. You can find this and other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Thank you once again for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.